Catalyst 2030 is a movement of social entrepreneurs and innovators embracing collective action to achieve the SDGs by the deadline of 2030. Our 1,500 members are active in 197 countries. By emphasizing collaborations, Catalyst 2030 is leveraging the power of the collective to accelerate real change in the lives of billions of people around the globe. What do our members say about Catalyst?
Catalyst 2030 is an invaluable global community of impact entrepreneurs.
Our relationship with Catalyst 2030 has really taught us the power of co-creation.
Join Catalyst 2030 and network, bond, and collaborate with our family members.
And I like the spirit of bringing change makers together to share and learn from each other.
Catalyst really understands the transformative nature of collaboration.
It's also a platform that can give us new tools and resources.
Catalyst 2030 has put my work on steroids.
But most importantly, to come up with solutions that are practical, ways where we can really make things happen, because social entrepreneurs are doers.
Are you a catalyst? Join us to achieve the SDGs.
Good afternoon, panelists and attendees. Thank you for joining us for this policy roundtable discussion. I am Hamza Shraid, the country director at Digital Opportunity Trust Jordan. It is a very great pleasure for me to moderate this panel on inclusive digital transformation across governments, funding, and private sectors in African and Middle Eastern countries. Being the country director of Jordan, our focus is to mobilize and support a youth-led movement that inspires all underserved and disadvantaged young people with digital literacy, 21st century skills, and the self-confidence that will enable them to thrive in an inclusive digital economy. In the last years, we have reached a 70% participation rate amongst young women through the projects we have implemented, such as Digital Livelihoods Project and Digital Skills for a Better Future program in collaboration with UNICEF. Therefore, it's quite relevant and exciting to facilitate this discussion today. The theme of the week is to re-energize the Sustainable Development Goals and catalyze systems change. In this roundtable, we would like to explore the opportunities and synergies between private, public, and funding sectors to promote inclusive digital transformation, while acknowledging youth empowerment and bridging the gender-digital divide. Unequal access to digital technologies have severe impacts and consequences for vulnerable populations in the Middle East and African regions. There are 2.2 billion young people not connected to the internet, according to a joint report released by UNICEF and the UN's International Telecommunication Union. That means that 2.2 billion young people, particularly young women, do not have access to opportunities. We must think of them and not leave them behind. Digital inclusion is central in addressing challenges we face throughout the world, especially in African and Middle Eastern countries. With inclusive digital transformation, we improve the availability, accessibility, and adoption of digital technologies, particularly among vulnerable communities. Today, we feature 4 panelists and 1 youth perspective. These 4 panelists will reflect and share their thoughts on how can governments, funders, and the private sector work together to build a more inclusive digital transformation. I'd like to introduce our panelists. Our first panelist is Dr. Fekedi Gatahon from Ethiopia. Dr. Fekedi currently serves as the Digital Service Lead at the Ministry of Information and Technology with a PhD in computer science. He has an extensive working experience in ICT and as a project manager, advisor, digital service leader, consultant, lecturer, and a researcher. Our second panelist is Mr. Peter Olanga from Tanzania, who is the Director General for Tanzania Telecommunications Corporation. With a master's degree in telecommunications awarded with distinction, Mr. Peter is a seasoned telecommunications ICT professional with over 25 years of experience in operations, regulation, and provision of ICT services in rural and underserved areas. Our third panelist is Dr. Ehud Gachugu from Kenya. Dr. Ehud is currently the director of Ajira digital project at Kenya Private Sector Alliance. He's an expert on youth employment and skills development with over 20 years of experience of professional and technical experience in Kenya and abroad. And our fourth panelist is Ms. Georgia Varesco from UNICEF Jordan. Ms. Varesco is the chief of the youth and adolescent section at UNICEF Jordan. She has over 18 years of experience in the development sector and has worked across MENA, Southern Africa, Central Asia, and Eastern Europe on issues related to youth empowerment and socio-economic development. In addition to our panelists, we are featuring the young voice of Waad Amro, who is a .youth leader. She's currently a senior student at the University of Jordan, studying management and conservation of cultural resources. Waad is eager to enter the labor market. She joined Jordan's training programs to enhance her employability by acquiring job-demanded digital skills. Waad's journey with Jordan extended to be a youth leader and an essential contributor to our youth-led programs. You can find further details about our panelists through our website, which is going to be shared in the chat box. Today, we're discussing how can governments, funders, and the private sector work together to build a more inclusive digital transformation. I'd like to kick it off with the first speaker, Dr. Fekedi Gatahon. Welcome, Dr. Fekedi. Dr. Fekedi, in your opinion, what are key joint priorities across sectors for an inclusive digital transformation? Based on your experience in drafting the digital transformation program in Ethiopia.
Thank you, Moderator Hamza. Thank you all. I'm grateful for take part in this panel discussion, and I will take my experience to respond to your questions. As an expert who's working in the Ministry of Innovation and Technology, I would like to say a few points about the key area which is raised, that is about the digital transformation per se. As you all know, digital transformation and the internet has changed a number of things, like how the market is working. It has been changing. And in a way, anyone may order whatever they need from wherever they are. And in doing so, the need for transportation and the cost of looking for whatever we need, the transaction and others are reduced. And not only that, this has created an opportunity to broaden the value creation and the value capture, so that it is becoming a driver for growth, particularly for the case of this inclusive economy. It gives us a chance to have a growth for a macro and a small scale business, which is in a way important to include the larger population per se. But the idea of a digital transformation is, even though it is fancy, it is nice, I would say there are a number of barriers for the transformation. One is the whole idea of transformation, digital transformation is about creating product, service, and process to be innovative, to have a kind of new business model, and it is capacity intensive. Not only that, there is a need to include the youth and the women. So and having that or doing that needs funding. It needs capacity building, digital capacity building. including human resource and handling a number of technical barriers. So the thing is, it is good to have it, at least from our government perspective. We have developed a digital strategy, which is called Digital Ethiopia 2025, and the aim of this strategy is to create new jobs, to increase the foreign currency earning, and above all, to make it inclusive of everyone. And that strategy, pathways are identified, in which the pathways which are identified are taking into, what is emerging in the technology, what is new, that's one thing. And another is, it needs to create new jobs, which is another one. Another is, it is capability to increase the foreign currency. So on the basis of that, pathways are identified, like agriculture is being one, manufacturing is another one, having ICT-enabled services is another one. And Ethiopia is known for tourism, even though we are not using digital technology for that. And tourism is another one. These sectors are identified on the basis of its contribution, So, but above all, and for the benefit of this panel, as it is inclusive, probably most of you, what you'll include is whenever digital transformation is considered, and as a key pillar, one of the proposal that would be stated or recognized as the UNDP's inclusive digital transformation. I would say our strategy is acknowledge this UNDP's inclusive digital strategy, digital transformation strategy, which takes into account, a number of pillars, in which one pillar is foundational digital catalysts, like you may take the need for digital payments, legal identity, and the need for exchanging of data and information. And beyond that, there are a number of other pillars which are needed. So our strategy takes this into account as well. We need a foundational, infrastructure. When I say infrastructure, it is not only the hardware, like data center and network. It takes into account as well, power, in which these are, becoming, and it was an issue at the time we draft the strategy. And then after, there are a number of new things which are added, like, as you all know, the only telecom provider was Ethio Telecom. Now Safaricom is in place. New data centers are coming. So this is one thing which is relevant for connectivity. And in addition to that, there are issues related to like government. When you take government, one issue that needs to be considered as a pillar, which will go in line with the question is, what will be the role of the government? I would say the role of the government is to avail a number of things. One is, as a regulatory body, there will be a need to have policies. With the context of this inclusive, digital transformation, there is a need to give or incentivize women, youth, and those who need special needs. For instance, for the case of ours, we have got a rectified policy, like a science, technology, and innovation policy, which is rectified recently. And one of the goals of this policy is to include women, youth, and those who are in special needs to take part and participate and benefit from the development of science, technology, and innovation. In addition to that, currently we are working on identifying where we are in the maturity level of digital literacy, which is an issue. We need to involve everyone in the digital transformation, and for that we are working on, startup proclamation, a proclamation that will help newcomers to take part in the innovation. So the thing is, the government has a role in it. And in addition to that, in addition to policies, regulations, the government has to put in place certain programs. Again, referring to the strategy we have, one of the programs we have is a digital inclusion program, and the strategy make it clear that by the end of 2025, like 70% of the population has to be digitally, literate, where literacy is a spectrum from those who are digitally aware to expert. That is one thing which are taken into the strategy. In addition to that, recently we have started organizing centers, digital transformation centers all over Ethiopia. If I'm not mistaken, the number is close to 13. The whole idea of the center is to train citizens, including women and youth, to work on which will help them to create new jobs, so that training will be intermediary. Another role of the government is, building a digital platform. And we have got a portal where foundational trainings are available for all. That is one thing. Another one is the proclamation make it clear that, the strategy make it clear that we have to go for digital, like digital payment and others. Providing digital training is also an issue from the government side. And in addition to what can be done by government, like capability building, monitoring, and the like, there are regulatory issues. For instance, as we are moving toward this digital transformation, we have to give, a fair market competition to all, including the newcomers, which is, an issue to be considered. A data standard, data protection, we are crafting, personal data protection that is relevant for the digital transformation. We assume it will be, approved soon enough. Another part, which is very much important, I believe, in digital transformation is the role of the private sector, which is the business community. In our thoughts and in our strategy, the strategy recognizes every part, everyone, including the private sector, as a beneficiary of. One role of the private sector is as a beneficiary of the digital transformation, in a sense that they can get financial support when they are starting a new company. This will be in line with the startup fund, the startup proclamation. Another is the business is an implementing partner. The private parties are implementing partners. So they can participate in infrastructure development, in the development of enabling systems, application, and others. Beyond that, the private sector is responsible party, responsible actor, in a sense that they have to work on the basis of and respecting the security and the privacy rule of the government, which will be, one is to be stated as the personal data protection. So in a way, I would say that digital transformation is not only an issue of the government, rather it is the take of all that will include the government, the private sector, and as well the funders, development partners, in which, for instance, for the development partners, we believe that development partners has to take part in this digital transformation, like in supporting keymaker solutions, keymaker ideas. Well, the idea of a keymaker solution is a solution that has a replicating factor. For instance, if we take, as the whole idea of this panel is about inclusivity, one aspect is we have got women who are living in the rural community. So if the funders are investing in empowering rural women through digital literacy, in which this could be giving training to rural women, who will go door to door in the first phase to train other women, and then later on to use internet as a means of, or as an ecosystem to train other women, then this will have, replicating factor, so that inclusivity will be addressed. Another one is for youth, for instance. Ethiopia is a country of youth. Like 50+% is a youth one. So what if the development partners, the funders, along with the government, is working on using youth as digital ambassadors, so that the training that will be given, including cities and the rural community, will be done by the youth. So this will create a job, and they are included. They are becoming part and parcel of, the digital transformation, so that we will see the impact of the digital transformation having like everyone, so that we all benefit out of it. That's all I can say. Thank you, Hamza. Back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Feketi. Thank you for your contribution and thoughts. Especially interesting was your reflections on the pillars and strategies you incorporate in Digital Ethiopia 2025. And additionally, keeping in mind the role of government and the private sector of this. And also how to keep inclusivity in mind with the example you mentioned, change-maker solutions. So great efforts, and thank you for your valuable input. We're moving to our next panelist, Mr. Peter Olanga. Mr. Peter, you have an extensive experience operating, regulating, and providing ICT services in rural and underserved areas. In your opinion, what are key strategies that encourage inclusive ICT sector development? And how do these strategies affect youth and women?
Thank you very much for actually being given this opportunity to participate in this very important panel. And there was a lot of good ideas from the previous panelists related to what I'm going to say now. So I'll be slightly brief in trying to explain what need to be done. So on the first part of the question, which is related to the key strategies, I'll give few examples of what Tanzania did in the past 20+ years. So we looked at the ICT strategies in two parts. First is the supply side issues, what the government did on the supply side. And then second, on the demand side, where we have our youth, women, and other parts of the population included. So on the supply side, we took a policy which looked at three important areas. The first one was the funding. The government invested into key infrastructure. So we have a national ICT backbone, which started like 7,000 kilometers. Now it's being upgraded to 15,000 kilometers. A second area, we opened the market for competition. That happened in 2005. And for at least 7 years, ICT was the fastest growing sector. The third part was legal and regulatory framework. So we intervened also in ensuring that we have equitable legal and regulatory access to all the participants in the ICT sector. But that was not enough. The direct intervention in rural and underserved area was through the funding in the Universal Communication Service Access Fund, which was providing funding to development of infrastructure in rural areas. And there we were looking at two things. First is the access. We provide 2G, 3G, 4G access in rural areas in the same price point as the one in urban centers, but also the underserved communities at its providing service. We're connecting schools. We had telecenters. So this would actually directly impact youth and women in rural, specifically dedicated to women, like the Girls in ICT projects, which we actually areas of training, so that they can be participants in the ICT sector, broadband, Wi-Fi, directly and provide service to in rural areas. One area which I would say we're still work in progress. In technology now, we are now experiencing what really economically as you'd expect the other parts of the country. By them having the amount other will need to relate implication to the use as a service needs
I think we lost Dr. Peter. Just wait a minute. See if we can get him back.
Apologies, I was disconnected, but I was saying what I was saying.
Yeah, I think, yeah, if you keep the video off. We couldn't hear the last thing you said. It was cutting off, to be honest. Okay. Can you hear me, Mr. Peter?
I can currently hear you very, and I remember say in Tanzania we took our strategic approach to inclusive funding by the government, which we did it in 2 areas. Was on the building the connectivity through a universal communication fund. And the area forces to actually in 2005 to 20 of the sector of the IT, and the third area in regulatory framework. But this one, particularly on the funding in rural areas, to ensure that with their low capacity to earn or with their low income, they were also able to participate in the inclusive manner. So in summary, that's what I wanted to share.
Thank you, Mr. Peter. It's very interesting to see the efforts of Tanzania Telecommunications Corporation in building an inclusive digital transformation, especially that you're investing a lot in infrastructure and expanding the connectivity to rural areas. We are going to move on to the next speaker and share with you afterwards key points that we might have missed from Mr. Peter because of connectivity issues. Let's move on to our next panelist, Dr. Ehud Gachugu. Hello, Dr. Ehud. Part of inclusive digital transformation refers to not leaving behind vulnerable youth. Dr. Ehud, you have a long track record of working with youth workforce development and youth employment through digital labor market. Could you highlight to us from your experience and research what synergies and opportunities exist in the digital labor market and economy that we can leverage to empower and promote youth employment?
Yeah, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me clearly. We are very delighted to really be part of this very important conversation that is seeking to understand how actors in the youth employment space can come together to provide viable and sustainable solutions to youth employment. Of course, anchoring this solution on the digital economy and the digital work. And we are very glad to be part of this. Let me start by saying that in order for me to reflect to that question, I want to introduce first and foremost how we are bringing all these ecosystem actors together to address this common solution. So the program that I am currently supporting is called Ajira Digital Project. And this project is a project that is owned and sponsored by the Kenya Ministry of ICT, Innovation and Youth Affairs. This program seeks to make Kenya a leading freelancing hub globally by making sure that Kenya is the labor choice destination for multinationals and national companies that seek to do business in the country. And therefore, the program seeks to position Kenya as a hub for talent and label that as digital talent as a service. And we do that. And our aim here generally is to make sure that we're introducing 1 million young people to digital and digitally enabled job, enabling them really to earn decent and meaningful incomes as a result of this. And so this program has 4 key pillars. It looks at the infrastructure, which has been extensively discussed here. How do we prepare young people to be able to access the opportunities in the digital economy by creating the necessary digital spaces for them to work, connectivity, devices, internet, and the rest. The second aspect is on building capacity on skills and communities that allows them to be able to work together, learn from each other through mentorship and coaching. That aspect that we do is to create awareness. As you rightly asked, the digital economy and digital work is an evolving and a very new concept that all actors, researchers, and practitioners are starting to look at. So there's less and little information of what works exactly, what it is exactly, and how does this compare to a conventional job creation approach and methodologies, and even understanding. And therefore, for us as a program, we are mandated to look into creating the necessary awareness such that there could be trust among the ecosystem actors as well as solution providers. The last thing that we do is to catalyze work. And this very interesting aspect is where now we actually throw away the classical economic models of work job creation, where we are looking at demand-driven type of work and asking ourselves, what is the role of government and government systems in generating digital work as the continent of Africa goes e-government, and therefore we are really looking into how to expand the realm and framework for job creation from a demand standpoint, where public service and private sector plays an equal role in catalyzing digital work for the country. And so that's the genesis of the program. This program is a multiple stakeholder program. It has private sector in it, it has a public sector in it, it has funders in it, it has young people in it, it has communities in it, and then solution providers, because the whole infrastructure and architecture of the program is really driven by the fact that there's acceleration of digital transformation in the country. And so what then do we specifically do, and what have we learned over time that is relevant for this conversation? Kenya as a country is really thriving in the digital economy. We foresee that the digital economy is going to contribute around 9.24% by 2025 to our Kenyan GDP. And therefore, the program is working at scale. So it's a national program that is really making sure that the businesses are prepared to cash in and support this growth, that the human resource and the policies that we do have in place are evolving as the digital economy evolves and adds significant contribution to the GDP. But one thing that has not been mentioned, I mean, there are many things that we mentioned here. We talked about infrastructure. We talked about the importance of digital skills and bringing everyone in the ecosystem together to look at how can we have, it's a whole village approach towards digital literacy and digital skills. Every citizen must appreciate and understand what this means to them. Right from people who are doing blue-collar type of work, how can they leverage on the digital capabilities and transformations that is taking place, to people in the agricultural and value chains, how can you use technology and digital solutions to do this? So this is really the capabilities we are bringing, and we've talked about extensively about this thing. But one thing that we've not talked about is this aspect of digital platforms and the importance of digital platforms as catalyzers, as sort of a mediators for labor, for young people, especially in Africa. Of course, this is something that is pretty new. And one of the things that we've seen, and we've learned is that the digital platforms are playing a very central role in supporting the growth. And for the digital platforms to thrive, then we need to think about the policy changes that are, that are supporting the growth. We're talking about access to finance. We're talking about, supporting the entire funding and financing capabilities, as well as technical assistance and the routes to market. There's so many things that we need to do, and we are working as a program to be able to see that we have a thriving digital platforms that can be able to accelerate the adoption of digital technologies in the private sector, in the public sector, and therefore creating the necessary jobs. And the last point that I really want to talk about, some of the things that we are learning, is this whole aspect of digital entrepreneurship. And looking at the ecosystem and the way they're driving, and the need to really have multiple solutions around the various challenges we are having. Young people are very agile and aggressive. We know for us to succeed in digital economy and getting best value for the digital, for digital work, then young people have to be at the center of these conversations. So as we talk about enterprise, as we talk about young people being at the center, because this is about the future of work and where they drive best, and this is really the future they know. And therefore, really working with young people, promoting entrepreneurship, startup, innovation, acceleration, this whole element that really brings in a scale and a catalytic impact on on the jobs is very, very necessary. We've talked very much around policy, but I think my point around policy is only one, that even as we do all this, there has to be what I call digital policy coherence. The digital ecosystem is a very fragile one. It's less known, it's less understood. We can't touch, we can't feel. We only see things happening because they're happening in the cloud, they're happening virtually. And therefore, the whole around the new policy development and looking at this sector that's really very unique to our situation and very future looking, we then need to have future-proof policies that allows the growth and development of this policy ecosystem. So therefore, for us as a program, we've learned so much in terms of what needs to get done. And as a result, let me highlight 3 key successes. One, the country has been able to put over 1.2 million young people to digital enabled work. And these are consistently earning through digital work every single year. The amount of wages they're earning is way above the minimum wage that's prescribed by labor laws in the country. The second thing is that we have been able to see adoption of digitalization in government and in the private sector, therefore creating an aspect of ring fencing the opportunities for the country and young people in the country. And this is one thing that we've really learned, that of course, as we compete globally, we also need to make sure that you are also providing a solution that will allow and cushion and provide a safety net for our local young people. And lastly, is about what works. We are yet to know what works. Investments in research, investments in thought leadership, and convenings like this one, sharing experiences from different and diverse areas is really what needs to get scaled up so that we can all learn from one another and be able to drive this conversation forward. So basically, that's really what we've seen. And we believe that as we continue to invest in this area, we will be able to have greater impact for young people in the country and globally. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ehud, for sharing about the Algeria Digital Project and how it reflects the potential for cross-sector collaboration. It's great to see as well your focus on involving youth and the mission to have Kenyan youth as hub for digital talent. This is a very well done job. On to our last panelist, Ms. Georgia. You've been leading UNICEF's efforts on youth empowerment and gender equality, especially to incorporate digital learning and skills for the future of work. In your experience, how have you seen a transformation in the funding scene that supports more inclusive digital transformation while ensuring equal access to youth and across gender?
Great, thank you. Thank you, Hamza, and thank you for inviting me to join this really interesting panel. My name is Georgia Variska, and I'm the Chief of the Youth and Adolescent Section within UNICEF Jordan. So I will look at the example and experience that we had in Jordan in the last few years around this really important agenda, and an agenda that I'm incredibly passionate about, which is the one both of a digital transformation, but how do we ensure that this is inclusive and provides equity to the young people. To answer your question, Hamza, I'd like to say that in my experience, I think in the past few years, we've seen an increasing in the efforts by all partners, whether they're government, private sector, development agencies, IFIs, to really focus on the digital transformation. In Jordan, for example, we've seen some incredibly important initiatives being launched by the government and, for example, the Ministry of Digital Economy, YTJ, which is Youth Technology Jordan, for example, being one of them. But there's so many that we could really talk about. In the last 2.5 years, we've seen COVID accelerating I think the trend of focusing on digital transformation and realizing really the importance of needing to bridge the digital divide and provide vulnerable young people, especially young women and young people with disability and those maybe residing in rural areas, with equity within the opportunities that the digital transformation can bring in terms of learning, connecting, and working. Jordan has definitely recognized the importance of focusing on youth development and employment through digital tools. I think also COVID has really highlighted the substantial gender gap that exists in the digital spheres and the need to ensure gender programming is prioritized and girls are provided with the much needed digital skills. A recent report from UNICEF, for example, showed that nowadays, 1 billion girls globally lack digital skills needed to succeed in today's digital world. And it is important to give them the chance to unlock their talent and to leave no one behind. This is why bridging the gender digital divide is at the core of many national efforts, and of course also a core of many of the programs that UNICEF, together with its multiple partners, are implementing. Within UNICEF Jordan, over the last 2.5 years, we've also been focusing on digital transformation, looking at education and technology, learning and technology, and youth development and technology. For example, we launched a digital public good initiative, fostering open source solutions that exploit digital tools to address societal issues in a multitude of fields, including health, transportation, education. And in Jordan, in the specific, we're now also working with a local accelerator called Shamal Start and the Embassy of Norway, and of course the government, to support the creation of an ecosystem of digital public goods to help advance sustainable development goals by exploiting the power of open source solutions. In addition to this, in partnership with Dr. Jordan, we have been implementing the Digital Skills for Future program, which has so far trained almost 4,000 youth, and out of this 70% females, in basic and advanced digital skills, and have recently launched the Bot Impact Sourcing platform, which has provided vulnerable youth with microemployment and placement opportunity in the gig economy. This has proved particularly valuable for young women and refugees whose mobility and therefore access to the formal labor market is traditionally limited. We have been working with the Ministry of Digital Economy and DOT to build the capacity to deliver training on digital skills for future on a sustainable basis. And we're planning to do the same now with other government actors and partners such as the Ministry of Youth. In partnership with Microsoft, we've deployed in Jordan the Learning Passport, which has so far reached 15,000 active users who are now able to access online learning opportunities through it. We've also exploited digital tools to provide 86,000 young people with a range of volunteering opportunities, including remotely through the Nahnu platform, in partnership again with the government, the Crown Prince Foundation, and NAWA. And lastly, we've also seen the power of digital technology when it comes to providing telehealth, access to telehealth at scale for vulnerable youth, in partnership with also a local organization called Antibi. So for sure, as it's witnessed by our own initiatives, but also by all of our partners, interest in supporting digital transformation has increased and has undoubtedly unlocked funding for this as well, another type of support, such as technology and expertise, and really bringing together partners around shared visions. The coronavirus pandemic necessitated that we rethink so much about the way we work at UNICEF, not only to adopt a remote workplace, but to deliver programs more efficiently and effectively to populations in need in the context, for example, of the shutdowns. That means building national enabling environments for digital transformation, scaling up digital platform, strengthening coordination across platform and among partners, and enhancing the viability and maturity of digital public goods across the world. The rapid acceleration and scale up of digital programming and the strategic integration of information and communication technology in national program has really allowed UNICEF to help also partners close the gap to meet children's and young people's needs in complex environment in line with existing national digital ecosystem and solutions. And my final remark, and I realize we're also running out of time, is really around the power of partnerships, because partnerships are essential to everything we do. Our partnership with the public, private, and academic sectors, as well as with young people, which it's an important partnership that needs to be referred to, really drive UNICEF programming enabled by technology for development innovation. We also leverage the comparative advantages, experience, and resources of other United Nations agencies, donors, and partners through joint planning, coordination, programming, and experience sharing for technology for development and digital initiatives to achieve results for children and young people with inclusivity at its core. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgia. As you said, partnerships is a very important and very powerful. And as the country director of the Jordan, we're very proud of partnering with UNICEF and the Ministry of Digital Economy, and definitely working with relevant stakeholders will make us achieve and create a huge impact in our communities. Thank you for stressing the importance of bridging the gender digital divide, and also showcasing concrete examples of funded programs and partnerships that aim to reach this goal. Thank you so much for your input. We're coming to the end of our panelist session. A big thank you to all of the panelists sharing your thoughts and reflections on how can government funders and the private sector work together to build a more inclusive digital transformation. As this panel considers the implications of cross-sector collaboration for youth, we would like to end our session with a youth perspective. We will open the floor to Wa'ad Amro, a DOT youth leader, to share with us her reflections and to summarize the panelists' contributions. Over to you, Wa'ad.
Hello, is my voice clear?
Yep.
So I'll be started. Digital technology can help enhance education and innovation, increases youth employability, and promote youth engagement and developments. But for us to benefit from these opportunities, every young person must be equipped with a range of technical skills and have affordable access to devices and connectivity. Local ministries, such as the Ministry of Digital Economy and Entrepreneurship, to provide platforms for youth to tackle the access and the connectivity. Challenges such as computer labs. However, through strategic partnerships with NGOs such as DOT, these spaces become activated and to promote skills development. Collective partnership between governments, private sectors, private corporates, and NGOs is what solidifies the offering and ensures no one is left behind. This improves the uptake for digital skills and youth engagements. It is also very important to provide sectors corporates need to capture and other sectors to ensure that skills developments are in line with the job market requirements. There are many gaps to be filled between the outcomes of educational institutions and the minimum requirements of employers. As young people who are ambitious to launch their careers, we are faced by rigorous expectations from employers. In addition, hearing from my peers in other domains, such as the health sector, the hospitality, and others, we all face the same issues regarding the use of basic ICT tools in our jobs, such as basic skills, and now as a crucial as crucial as basics mathematics or languages skills, the ICT basics, to be able to instill such core competences. Digital inclusion needs to be treated as a priority and no longer as a privilege. The digital transformation should start in early stages by equipping educational institutions at all levels with the proper infrastructure, talent, skills, and the continuous update to be able to effectively bridge the gap between the recent era and what has always been considered a luxury. As a young lady looking for opportunities, I improve my skills and my employability. I joined Dot Jordan looking for ways to improve my ICT skills. My journey started with a basic digital skills training. Afterwards, I joined the microwork training that has tremendously helped me improve my data management skills. In addition to Excel, Google applications, creating my own resume, creating and using my emails. Better managing my time. Later, a social media and a graphic design course was launched. I joined Since I had always been passionate about graphic design, now I feel more confident to work on freelancing opportunities and entering the gig economy. And currently, this will help me after my graduating to find more opportunities in the ICT sector. I am thankful to have had an opportunity to be engaged in such a project, but I am always wondering about my peers and other youths in marginalized communities. This discussion had made me realize there is so much to be done, and the success we have achieved can be extended and replaced. And what caught my attention when Dr. Fagate mentioned that from his experience, digital capacity building for all women and youth is one of the main drivers of growth for the digital economy. Hence, the availability and uptake the capacity building programs in an essential building blocks towards an exclusive digital transformation. And it was also interesting to hear Mr. Peter mentioning that in Tanzania, besides looking at the domain side, improving and creating policies on the supply side, the supply side, enable governments to channel funding towards developing infrastructure in rural areas, help research, help to reach and include underserved communities. And Dr. Ehud point on the digital labor market align with what is happening locally here in Jordan. When it comes to uptake and investment in digital entrepreneurship, and relating to what I can see as an NGOs and donors moving towards supporting and offering digital skills programs. Miss Georgia, I would like to acknowledge that role of UNICEF and all the UN agencies, which is vital to empower youth from an early stage, in addition to contributing to an inclusive digital transformation, and creating a launch programs that are forced to be upskilling digital skills and mobilizing research to support such programs is a vital step towards inclusive digital transformation. And I just want to say thank you for everyone for attending this session, and I am glad I have been even given the opportunity to voice my opinion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ad. We are proud of you. And thank you for recapping the roundtable panel discussion and for your valuable input. It's very important to have youth voice in such discussions. All of these discussions and efforts are aimed toward inclusive systems that prepare and empower the next generation with better opportunities, whether in health, education, and more, as you said. I'd like to thank the distinguished panelists and all of the attendees, as well as CCW for providing this platform for encounters and discussions. Thank you so much, everyone. And this is the end of our